Good evening, everyone. So I want to discuss my favorite team. This is the what I would dub the Inazuma National Team. It consists of Kokomi, Raiden, Ayaka, and Kujo-Sara. Obviously, this is not a waifu team or a sort of meme team. This is what I would dub like a serious competitive team for the Spiral Abyss. We'll obviously analyze some footage where I cleared the entire Spiral Abyss in a sort of single take run on both sides, all 6 chambers on floor 12, of course, in under 3 minutes. So we'll do that at the end of the video, and I'll also be talking from a C0 perspective, or the sort of in air quotes free to play perspective, where your accounts are not as strong, and what the implications are, and just what are the things that you might need to consider. So with that being said, how does this team actually work? This team is not a team that starts off at point A and then goes through all their abilities in a specific order, in a specific way, like a specific bunch of theory craft has told you to, and then once you've burned through everything, you then start up right at the beginning, and you sort of have this very loop-like gameplay style. This team in and of itself actually has a lot of different sub-loops, to the point that you could play it in almost any given rotation, and that is what makes this team really beautiful. You can vary how much on-field and off-field time you want with all the different characters, and yes, that includes not keeping Raiden Shogun on the field for 7 seconds. That includes not having Raiden Shogun at full resolve all the time. This includes making the support capabilities of Raiden, or her offensive capabilities, shine a bit more. The same applies to Kokomi. Ayaka will mostly be dealing damage, and Kujo-Sara obviously be buffing. But hopefully you guys can understand that this team is very flexible in the different ways in which you can utilize abilities. Unlike a team like the national team with Raiden, Bennett, Xingshu, and Xiangling, whereas you've got to play like a very set rotations with them, and effectively once the entire team's elemental burst run out, let's say you're running between floors in a Spiral Abyss, your team damage significantly plummets compared to this team. This team also, if you play it properly, you will never ever between rotations, or like between floors, run out of elemental burst. You'll always have at least 1 or 2, at the minimum I would say 2 elemental burst ready, and because you can play this team in any given order, it is really powerful. This team is not a team for freeze, but freeze certainly does help the team out quite a lot. Freeze is more like a consequence of what you can do with this team, and that's what really makes it so cool. The core is Kokomi and Raiden. Ayaka is the main damage dealer here. There is no other cryo character that can effectively quick swap in and out and still do that like sustained high DPS damage. Perhaps Rosaria, but she's like a 4-star. And then of course Kujo-Sara is here. So if in future we wanted perhaps to put more emphasis on Raiden's support and Ayaka doing damage, we could swap out Kujo-Sara for, let's say, some sort of cryo support unit that does something similar. That's just a bit of food for thought, of course. So what is cool about this team, and I think, let me discuss this from a C6 perspective real quickly. This team effectively, through the combination of their abilities, does more than the Raiden National, and you don't need Bennett with this team because this team's got an implicit Bennett sort of in it. So what do I mean by that is, well, Raiden Shogun is often sort of, everyone looks at her for what the damage is, but a lot of people forget about her support capabilities. In particular, her C6 is just incredibly broken because she allows us to turbocharge our rotations, and it's something that I will showcase to you later as well. But her C4 effectively gives the entire party a 30% attack bonus. So when I pair Kujo-Sara and that C4, my Ayaka is essentially boosted to about 3900 attack, and including like with, if I used Bennett instead to boost Ayaka's attack, then I also get about 3925. Like the difference is really small. So effectively, all the buffing capabilities of Bennett is implicitly captured by this team. Kokomi obviously heals, so with Jellyfish we do about 10k heals, and of course if members are below half health we can heal them up for 13k and still do off-field damage. When Kokomi is in her elemental burst form, she heals for about effectively 16k per second. That is 2k per hit. You get 2 hits per second, which effectively means you heal for 4k per team member, which means Kokomi's overall team healing output is 16k. If you include the Jellyfish, that is about 20k per second. The world's best built specialized Bennets that sacrifice all the other utility just to heal can do about 10k heals per second. So effectively Kokomi does more insane healing and she can still do damage. She doesn't need to sacrifice anything. So in that regard, Bennett's support capabilities in terms of healing and buffering this team sort of really makes you see what the difference is between a 5-star and a 4-star when you compare them at their peaks. And I think this is an important point that I need to mention. Your Bennett that you've got, that you now have currently built out properly, that's got all these constellations, your Xiangling, your Xingshu, they're not going to get any better. They're already at their sort of skill ceiling, apart from, let's say, improving their artifacts. Your 5-stars will get better over time. In the long term, the free-to-play players in particular that understand that they can't get all the units because then they'll have like a disadvantage in terms of power. Those players that understand that sometimes you need to specialize in 1 or 2 characters when their reruns come are ultimately going to be a lot better off than the players that just want to have all the characters at C0. And certainly in 2-3 years time you guys will have a C6 5-star character as free-to-play players, and then a legitimate conversation will come up. My long-standing Bennett now compared to my proper fully built C6 5-star, you'll see there's going to be a lot of competition for the little trio from Leeway in the national team, and it's going to be quite exciting. I can't wait for that day as well. So now that you guys know sort of what the team does, the fact that it makes Bennett redundant, the fact that this team can enable freeze and superconduct, which increases Kokomi's sort of bubble damage, and physical Ayaka. My physical Ayaka can hit when appropriate. I think the hardest I've hit is for about 140k physical Ayaka instead of cryo Ayaka. All of these things work together in a lovely way. There's a lot of other interactions. I can't go into all of them. But what I want to go into is how does this team play from a C0 perspective, and then we'll do a C6 review. So let's get into it. Right, so as you guys can see, I've got my free-to-play alternative account here. And what we're going to try and do is sort of just demonstrate to you just how much we're lacking in terms of keeping both Raiden and Kokomi's elemental bursts up simultaneously. This is obviously due to the fact that we don't have a C4 Kokomi. With C4 Kokomi and Everlasting Moonglow, you effectively get such a very strong energy restoration, way more than you would with Prototype Amber, and that would then enable you to keep up your elemental burst. But already if you guys have already seen some of my gameplay on the channel, you can already feel that Kokomi is not generating quite as enough particles to get her burst right up. So what do you do from a C0 perspective in this case? Well, you swap to a full team, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this team. Obviously I don't have Kujosara, so we're just sort of swapping in Beidou. This team is not competitive. They don't have all their artifacts or levels or weapons or everything like maxed out, or even talents past talent level 6, so don't expect too much in terms of damage. But despite all of that, we're still going to clear this floor or this chamber specifically in under 1:30 with this team, which is really nice. So it's just the first half, just to make that abundantly clear. And what you can see now is we've got Raiden Shogun's elemental burst. Now we've got Ayaka here, so she's now come online. We've got Beidou, and now the Raiden Shogun is just going to be that essential support. This is what people don't forget about. Raiden Shogun is a support, and she's just pushed the entire team right over the edge to just have the elemental burst ready. Here you can see I'm just sort of tasering the wolves and freezing them, and now we're just going to hit hard, go to Kokomi and get the refresh on the Jellyfish. By the way, if you do find that the wolves sort of run away, or you are outside of your AoE and your jellyfish, let's say you're attacking with the Raiden Shogun, what you can do is you can just, once you're outside the radius, just sort of turn around and attack the enemies moving back into the jellyfish. That's just something that I thought you might want to find interesting. But yeah, here it is, guys. Even an C0 team can effectively work if you play this rotation right. So let's look at this from a C6 perspective now. Alright everyone, so this is my C6 sort of showcase. You don't need to watch the video that's linked here. You can just sort of watch it with me right here, right now. So this is my Spiral Abyss run, clearing all 6 chambers or all 6 halves of floor 12 in a combined time under 3 minutes. And you can also see from the video length it's below 3 minutes. So what I want you to notice is, look at the elemental burst. That is the big thing that I want you to notice, if nothing else. So we start off with Kuchasara, and we're just going to quickly clear out these 3 wolves because they're just wasting our time. And now we get these 2, and notice that immediately I'm starting to attack from the side. So this is again a positioning thing, and I'm pushing the first wolf with Raiden Shogun towards the second wolf. Typically the enemies with their AI can sometimes repeat the same attacks, so if they're clumped up together, they might come to you together as well, which is really nice. And the moment Raiden Shogun is almost near her burst, we can just swap her off. And here we go, Ayaka doing the freeze. Again, important, even if you only have one target, it is sometimes worth it to just get that target, because a lot of the times the enemies, whilst they may walk out of Ayaka's elemental burst, if you've got an enemy frozen, then it's in all likelihood the other enemy might just come and towards you and walk into your elemental burst, which is sort of what happened here. And now I can choose to either use Ayaka or Kokomi or whoever on the team to just quickly finish up and clean up everything. And there we go, pretty sweet. And next floor, we're just going to freeze the one enemy. And now very important, he's going to jump at the back, and I'm going to overlap the iframe or the activation time from my elemental burst of Kujo-Sara with him jumping in the air. So look at that, Kujo-Sara, and now I'm going to do the exact same with Raiden Shogun. So what I'm doing is, whilst the enemy is quote unquote invulnerable by having jumped into the air, I am essentially using that time then to sort of get my elemental burst ready. And also note that because I froze the first enemy and the second enemy jumped right in front of me, they're now clumped up, and effectively I can hit them with all the AoE in the world. So we get the passive AoE from Kokomi's jellyfish, that's going to tick, we get Raiden's, and of course then we also get Ayaka after this. Very nice, take out the one enemy, and now there we go with Ayaka, pretty simple. And as you'd noticed, we never, like I promised you, we're never running out of elemental burst. We've got at least 2 bursts online, pretty cool. And do take very careful note, look here, Kokomi, she's almost got her elemental burst up again, very nice. Note the timing on the jellyfish right now. So I'm going to freeze the enemies, go into Kujo-Sara, hey, her burst is up, Raiden Shogun, finish off the enemies, and then right at the last second we're going to get a refresh on Kokomi's jellyfish. If you count the seconds, you'll see it was pretty close, and we're just waiting for the enemies to come towards us, because why not? Then we can freeze them, take them out, and surprise surprise, Kujo-Sara's elemental burst is back up. And that is because Raiden Shogun effectively reduced the elemental burst cooldown from 20 to 15 seconds, which is really nice. And here we can just finish them off, easy, done. Next floor, or next chamber. So now we're again on the first floor, and we're just going to hit them, take out the enemies pretty quickly. And again, even if we don't crit, it's not a problem. And the usual standard freeze team, boom, hit them with Ayaka, pretty cool. And here's Kokomi again, getting that AoE wide bubble damage, very strong. And now we can just sort of finish off this enemy in one swipe. And there we go. And look there, Raiden Shogun almost again at full well, she is sort of at full energy recharge. Here's a tip that you guys might not know. If you sort of wait until the end of the floor sort of plays, like it says there, chamber 1 completed, tick tick tick, your stars. If you just wait a bit for all the energy particles to accumulate, then your active character can actually get their burst ready. and because Raiden Shogun was in her elemental burst, her energy recharge rate was I think about 366, so she got that one or two stray particles and the burst was like fully back up, which is really cool. Magu Kenki is a bit more tricky here because this guy in the blue guy here sort of ran away, and now it's just a case of trying to group them up to get the most AoE damage, and then we'll just sort of finish them off. There's not really much to say here apart from just be clever in how you dodge, and of course use your Kokomi when needed to attack or to tank various hits, because that's what Kokomi is there for as well. She can tank the hits, she's got a large health pool, she's got an insane jellyfish, and there we go, now we're back on it. Look at Raiden Shogun's burst, full, literally it's full for the last floor, and that is just again absolutely insane. We're gonna hit, and Kokomi's burst is online. I promise you guys we're never gonna run out of elemental burst, and Kujosaurus is online, and now we'll do a bit of a freeze, very convenient. Here's Kokomi just there for the quick downtime of the team. Gonna finish everyone off, and then we exit early, go into Kujosara and get her buff on Raiden, and there we go, we'll just hit these guys. Raiden is at full resolve and she can finish them off. Pretty cool, pretty fun. So this is what a C6 team sort of does. Right everyone, if you've been watching up until now, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this clears up this sort of team comp, and hopefully you guys have sort of liked this team and why I play it. There's a lot of detail that I have skipped over, there's a lot of technique that we haven't covered, but the big thing that I want to say is the way in which you play this team really does determine its success, and that's what I love about it. It's quick swap, it's so flexible, and the reason it's so flexible is because all the characters are so flexible and consistent. And ultimately this is what makes a great and sort of effective, like future-proof team comp, in my opinion. So yes, don't tell Fury Crafters about the Inazuma National. They'll wake up in 4 years time, and then we can just sort of have a good time then. Cheers.